Well, one of the things we figured out in doing research for the film is that in the animal world there are natural enemies,
Yeah.
and we wanted to find a pair of animals where we have our own preconceptions about what these animals are. Like people think, okay, bunnies are timid and they're shy and they're kind of not very smart. Foxes
Yeah.
are sly and conniving,
Cunning and
cunning, and it just felt like untrustworthy because the movie is about stereotypes, and so we needed those characters to really fit into those boxes really well.
I think it's an homage to all the kind of anthropomorphic Disney animal movies or sequences with animals wearing clothes and talking and like Mr. Toad, Wind of the Willows. You know, I think a lot of it. I think some of it comes from that and the I always loved the soccer game
Oh yeah.
sequence in Bedknobs and Broomsticks
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a really good
when
one.
I was a kid, and definitely
Has
Byron loves Robin
Oh yeah,
Hood.
I love that, the Disney influence, and I think one of the things we talked about early is making sure the movie Zootopia goes past that and
Yeah.
builds on it, because there have been a lot of animal movies, a lot of talking animal movies, so we figured we needed to do something more, and that's why the world itself really feels like animals designed it, like it has multiple scale entrances for mice and gerbils and ferrets and elephants, and the architecture itself feels very specific to animals, but still feels relatable to us as a human city.
And when Byron started on the movie, I remember John Lasseter kind of saying to you, like, okay, it's not just going to be Robin Hood
Right.
or Wind in the Willows. It's like, what would happen in a world like this with animals that are like, number one, how did they become like this?
Right.
You know, how did they go from animals that we know into these kind of animals that are more like humans? And how would natural enemies that we know in nature react to one another, like the fox and the bunny, or any kind of prey and predator
Yeah, definitely.
situation? Like what happened to kind of to change that dynamic that they can now live together?
Yeah, to develop the city of Zootopia is incredible because we do have 7 or 8 different districts. Each one is a different environment. So we have rainforest, the tundra town, which is freezing cold, Sahara Square, which is hot and dry. And so we wanted to make sure that the city of the movie actually could work. And we have this crazy, amazing German designer named Matthias Lechner who is designing the city. And the great thing about having a German guy in charge of all this engineering is that the engineering really works. It's you could actually build
you could
this.
build it if you
could
wanted
build this
to.
if you had enough money.
And the railroad would run on time. You know, it would be right on the button.
It's true.
Right to the second.
But we talked to lots of experts, like for the air conditioning wall that's between Tundra Town and Sahara Square. We talked to air conditioning experts who told us how to cool an entire stadium and how big a machine you would need to do that. And for the rainforest, we have steam cannons on the tops of the trees that keep the rainforest nice and damp and makes the vegetation grow. So everything is as if animals created an artificial environment for themselves to make themselves feel really comfortable. And I think that's what John Lasseter was asking us for, is to go a step further than your typical animal film, to figure out if these animals really did evolve like human beings, how would they do things differently? And that's where the movie gets really fun. Well, you know, the movie it's all mammals in Zootopia right now, because we found that a lot of the issues in the city have to do with predator and prey, and those relationships are strongest with mammals. Like all reptiles, most of them are predators. Fish are all predators. They all eat something else that lives. Birds, a lot of them are. It's very confusing. So, in order to tell our story the clearest way, we limited it to just mammals in the city. But that's where that came from. And also, one of the most interesting things we found out in doing research was that in nature, it is 90% prey animals and only 10% predators. And so that was really interesting to us, because then those predators become an automatic minority. And then that started thinking us about social, our own social way that cities grow, and about how different groups
How predators
get along
would
and
be,
don't get along.
how a 10% group would be,
Like marginalized.
thought of and treated by the 90%, so, and that's where that whole idea of, kind of bias and what do the prey animals think of the predators, or have they evolved away from that, where they don't even think about that? And if so, what if that came back, into society? And we even see it like, I always think of it as kind of like Manhattan.
Yeah.
You know, that would be kind of my touchstone, or no, I would say Manhattan is the one that I think of, with the different neighborhoods, with the boroughs of Manhattan, that each one is kind of different.
Bronx and Brooklyn
And Queens and Long Island, and I think that's what gives it just this very kind of this character of, that all these people are living here, and everyone kind of deals with one another. There's something wonderful about that city, but then it's not perfect. It's got lots of problems, like any big city, but somehow the people who created the city and the people who live there have figured out a way to kind of make it work. And that's kind of what Zootopia, I don't think is like I don't think it's a perfect place. I don't think it's a utopian world. It's a place like any big city. It'd be like Paris. It's wonderful to be in Paris. But there are parts of Paris that are probably like, well, that's got its problems. So that's what Zootopia. The city is like that. Because we want it to feel real. Not a make-believe world.
Oh, the jokes. Well, it's very collaborative. I think we have a great story team and great writers on the film, and I think we're trying to make movies that make us laugh too. They have to work on every level for children and for people our age and for elderly people, but it has to be
teenagers
smart.
And
teenagers, exactly.
And people in their 20s, and so it's like we never try to do just like one specific kind of joke. It's like there are references, but there are other kinds of humor. There's puns, there's slapstick, there's very kind of high level jokes. That maybe 2% of the audience will get. So, and that's kind of like when I was on Simpsons. That was always the goal, was to have many different kinds of comedy in the show, not just one, so it doesn't feel like, oh, that's just for kids, or oh, that's for adults. I can't let my kids watch this, it's too racy. And I think since it's at its heart, it's about this person coming to the city to prove herself, but it's also a detective story. There is a mystery in the movie, so that kind of sent us towards a lot of movies about crime and mysteries and detective work, and like Chinatown and The Godfather, and just like 48 Hours and Beverly Hills Cop, and just all these different ones. So then you start to kind of like, well, what are things that we want to pick up? What are some kind of tropes and conventions of that genre, of like cop movies or crime movies or detective movies, that we can play on? And that's where it starts to pinpoint it a little bit more of the types of jokes and the types of places they're going to go, and you try to find the comedy
when the movie seems to be the funniest is when we can take something that every human being knows about, like the Department of Motor Vehicles or bureaucracy and stuff, and then we can do an animal flip of that, and that's where people, I think, really light up. And there's so many opportunities, because it's a modern world like ours. They use technology, they deal with the same things every day that we deal with, but when we show how they deal with trials that you go through every day in your own life, that's where people start to really relate. That's when they really start to laugh and cry. So they're great. Well, I guess we're very collaborative. So the nice thing about working at Disney is that we all help each other out on our respective movies. Like we're all making these movies as good as we could possibly be, and we need very smart people to come in and be very honest with us if things are working or if they're not working. So that's where our story trust comes in.
And I would say from Wreck-It Ralph, that was my first movie at Disney, and from that, like, you can have all the great action in the movie, or you can have lots of jokes, or or a beautiful world and just amazing art, but if there isn't like a heart to the movie, and by that I mean a relationship between two characters that you can identify with and that you can feel emotionally, then I don't, as an audience, I don't engage in those movies that don't have that are just kind of action or comedy or beautiful artwork. It's like I need like the emotion between two characters in the film to really get invested in it. That makes me feel like I felt like that one time. I get it. I understand what this movie is about. And that's what we always strive for. Every movie that we do at the studio.
And we never stop pushing. We always push each other until the films have that, because if we don't have that emotional core, like Rich said, then the movie doesn't mean anything. It can be very funny, the world can be amazing, but it'll just be fluff if it doesn't have something
and
solid.
then when you leave, it's kind of like, oh, that was pretty good. And we use the word heart a lot, but really all that means is just like emotion. Emotion between two characters, and it can be different every time, but as long as you can feel that and you can identify with those characters and love them and really want them to have what they're wanting, what they are searching for in the movie, then I think that's doing Wreck-It Ralph, I felt like, okay, that is what makes a Disney movie, is that it has that kind of thing. And it can be totally different. Wreck-It Ralph is so different from Frozen, but on a very basic level, they have the same kind of thing working. And that's what attracts people to these movies, I think.